Well, cool, man. Well, we'll just go right into it.
Okay.
It's like I say, it's a pretty casual thing, but I will lead this episode by saying I am talking with my good friend and sometimes collaborator, Edwin B. Bickford III. Are you still using that name?
No, I just went Ed because it's too much to say, and I
I
was doing it
liked it
because it
though.
was, huh?
I liked it though.
I did too, and I really wanted to use it because in the three name, because you had Edwin Austin Abbey was like a famous illustrator back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and Edwin Georgie, or I think it's Georgie or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got to the point where no one ever calls me Edwin except for Jennifer, and everyone always just calls me Ed. So I was like, I'm just going to do Ed because it's just easier and less confusing to have all these different names out there. I mean, I already got Metal Robot too, so.
There's another. I guess I should have fact checked this before starting the podcast, but there is another artist named Ed Bickford.
Yep.
He did. If it's the one I'm thinking of, he did a lot of stop motion animation for like with Frank Zappa and some stuff like that.
Oh, I don't know. I think there's an Edwin Bickford. I want to say he's in San Diego or one of those California cities with the sand in the front of it. Because
I went sounds like it would be somebody that would work with Frank Zappa, but
I think he was like Edwin. I can't remember, but he's in California, and actually his first name is Edwin. So I could, because I was like, oh, I'll just do Edwin Bickford, but then
he actually is Edwin.
Yeah, and actually, and I was like, wow,
yeah, he's a doppelganger.
Yeah, so I'm like, I can't do that. So I had, because I was trying to use my little discount card at Dick Blick. And they're like, which Edwin Bickford are you? I'm like, the one in San Diego or whatever. I'm like, what? I'm like, no, I'm here in Kansas City with you. So that's why it kept on going from Edwin Bickford to Edwin B. Bickford III,
Yeah.
And because I didn't want to get confused with my dad and all that stuff. And I'm like, after it just got to the point where I'm like, you're just thinking too much about this. Just do Ed Bickford. And then, and also, I wanted to have, so if you Googled my name, you didn't find the one kid who's just like flipping people off in his pictures and stuff. Because Nash always tells me, he's like, I Googled your name, Dad. Look at this kid that's doing this. And I was like, well, let's hope I get big enough to kind of push it to the bottom or something.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I remember, when we first met and was working on stuff, you were just going by Ed, and then at a certain point you switched, you were going to use Edwin B. Bickford III professionally. And I always liked it. It reminded me of I have one of my favorite artists, and I think somebody that you admire a lot too, Barry Windsor Smith.
Yes.
But when he started, he was just Barry Smith, and then he added the Windsor in between to make it sound more
prestigious
British and austere, prestigious.
Yeah, the Edwin B. Bickford III made it sound like I would be showing up to a con in a yacht or something. You know?
Exactly. With the little neckerchief and
the pipe or smoking jacket, and you're like, hey.
It's Edwin B. Bickford III.
Yes.
Sorry, I've got multiple
Super
cats on
Muffy is my comic book.
But anyway, so we're talking a little bit about history here. Why don't you tell me, as long as I've known you, you've been an artist. Have you been interested in art your entire life? Like, has that just been one of those kids that's always had a pencil in your hand?
Yeah. I think one of the oldest memories I have is I think I drew all these sheets of paper of elves loading up the Santa's sleigh and all this stuff. And I drew I don't know how many sheets of paper I drew, and I left them for Santa. And Christmas, I didn't care what I got for I didn't care what I got for Christmas that year. I remember I came out and my pictures were still there, and I was so upset. I didn't care what I got for Christmas. I don't want to open presents because Santa didn't take my pictures I made for him. He didn't take the pictures with him. So that upset me. But I want to say that I've probably been I drew, and I was the kid that drew in all the classes in high school. Was always drawing,
doodling in the margins.
No, I would actually just draw. I would. There was two other good artists that I looked up to in high school. There was you always had the best artists each class, and these guys were ahead of me, and I looked up to him, and this one guy was amazing. and his name was Teddy Vane, and he was just an amazing artist. And we would go to the art department in the back room of the art room and get like a 11 by 17 sheets of vanilla oat tag or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And since he did it, I did it. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to try to do that. So I would run around with oat tag folded up all the time and draw and all my classes and stuff. And I think this might be one of the first jobs I've ever had that I haven't got in trouble for drawing on the job. Like I've got in trouble in the Air Force, and I got in trouble drawing all the time. And
you got in trouble in the Air Force for drawing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do they what do they make you do, push-ups?
No, I'm in the Air Force, not the Army. They just
yell at
you. They just yell at you, and I'm really disappointed in you.
Oh, that's funny. So, I mean, I guess so. You were in the Air Force. You did some time in the military. Did you go to school for art? Like, what?
Yeah. I did 10 years in the Air Force. I got out.
Oh, 10 years. Wow.
Then I fixed copy machines for 5 years. And somewhere during the fixing the copy machines, my ex-wife, she left. And so I met Jennifer, and then things fell in together where it was either use it or lose it. And I was my GI Bill was coming up. So I actually went in 2003. I went to CMSU. It was called CMSU. Now it's UCM. So I actually have a diploma from both UCM and CMSU for commercial art, emphasis and illustration.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used my GI Bill, and I think we didn't understand the things because it's either like I think it's like 4 years or $36,000 or something like that, right?
Uh-huh.
So the last semester, the $36,000 went out, and we had to pay out of our own pocket the whole last semester of college because I went to school full time.
Oh, okay.
I went to school full time, an hour away from where I lived, and then I drove back the hour, and then I went to school full time then, and then I drove back and started work. I worked from 4 to midnight at a grocery store full time.
Oh,
and then
okay.
after I got off work, I would do my homework at like midnight or whatever. There's a few times. I think there's only a few times I worked on the homework until like 4 a.m. Then I got back up at 6 and then drove all the way out there to work out to school again.
Oh, wow.
And I think after the second time, that kind of kicked the procrastination in the ass.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not doing that again. That was horrible.
Yeah.
Because the next day, the 2 hours sleep, and then the next day, it just makes. I got through college easy because it's drawing and stuff like that. But the then having to go to work at 4, that was really what kicked my butt. 4 to midnight.
Yeah.
Oh my
Working
God,
those evening late shifts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Jennifer. The only way I saw the Finley and Nash is if Jennifer would bring the kids out during my lunch break. I got a half-hour lunch break every day.
Yeah.
And she would bring them out during my lunch break, and that's when I got to see Jennifer and the kids.
Wow. Yeah, that's got to put the time in. It's tough. I know. That's something I always like to talk to people about, is like balancing that work and family life, home life, because it's.
Oh yeah.
And also with a lot of people also balancing a day job, but I mean balancing school work, it's the same thing. I do think that's something that a lot of people, that's kind of a make or break thing for a lot of people, of whether or not they can balance a schedule and just be like, this is what I got to do. I'm going to do this at this time, this at this time, and this at this time. And a lot of people get really frustrated with like sticking to a regiment like that. I imagine you being in the Air Force, that probably helped you with a little bit like sense of discipline. No, not at all.
No, I did a lot of drinking and partying in the Air Force. So I got a lot of trouble. I got a lot of trouble for that too.
Oh my gosh. Oh
yeah,
no.
I was not the most mature person.
And so is it true what they say when I've heard it colloquially referred to as the chair force?
Yeah, I remember I see a lot of people calling it the chair force. A lot of times during Veterans Day, everyone's like, "Thank you for your service." I'm like, I didn't do anything. I was like a college kid almost.
Yeah.
I partied hard, and I had a 8 to 5 job, and I drank my brains away through my 20s, and So
you went to school, you like for art, right? Like you went, did you go?
Yeah.
So like, I'm curious, like what were your plans? Like you wanted to like learn art? Were your plans to like get a job as an artist somewhere? Because
Yeah.
I'm somebody who you know me. I mean, I'm somebody who's definitely artistically driven, although I'm not much of a drawer, but you know, I like music and writing, etc. And I have zero ideas of how anybody gets a job doing something creative like that. Like, was there?
Me either. I mean, they don't teach you that. They just, my idea was that I was going to get a piece of paper that said I graduated and I have a bachelor's degree and I should just be able to walk out of college. And I thought, you know, I'm a good artist. You know, I should be able to just walk out of here and get a job somewhere. And I got out in 2000. I went from 2003 to 2007. So I get out just before I turned 37 years old. And, yeah, nobody. And when I got out, it had all these jobs. There was jobs actually described as illustrator jobs. But if you read the description, it was graphic design. They were they combined all. They were at the around 2007. It was just a tipping point too because we didn't do any digital illustration. It was
I was gonna say that time period was probably that weird period where the technology was changing faster than a lot of businesses or I imagine schools were changing to catch up with it.
We still had computers and we had a graphic design department, but I was illustration. So I was more on the fine art side and we did everything traditionally. And I think there might've been one kid that one of the guys in our classes that started doing digital stuff our senior year. But I don't think he's an art director somewhere and he just does graphic design. I don't think he does anything illustration wise. But at 2007, it was the tipping point where everything just went digital and nobody would want to hire me because I didn't have any digital experience. And they were combining, and I would read jobs and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Illustrator, yes. And I'm like, they combined the job illustrator and graphic designer and they would still call it an illustrator job. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. And then I'm like, so then I ended up working at Chuck E. Cheese as a technical manager, fixing all the games and rides. And my brother got a job at the place where I work now, and they do custom art T-shirts and stuff. So I was like, I'll just get a job there, and I'll get my foot in the door, and then I'll just get in the art department. I was like, they'll see, you know, how good I am, and they'll just have to let me in the art department, right?
Right, you're an artist.
Yeah, and I've been there 13 years and I'm still not in the art
department.
That
must be because you're so good at your current job. They can't.
Sometimes I wonder if people are like, no, you can't have them or anything like that. But
that's
I tried for 5 years. I tried for 5 years, and then I left art support, and I was like, because after I was told that, you know, your portfolio won't be good enough and it never will be good enough to be in my art department. I was like, well then, and I was telling myself, then I was like, well, then I'll go work somewhere else. And this company can pay me not to make art in another department somewhere.
Right.
And so I had a friend of mine in another department and she was leaving. And so I went out to lunch with her and her boss and their coworkers. And I got along with the boss and everyone really fine. So when she left, they were looking to replace, there was a position that was open. So I applied for that and I got that. And now I touch all the art before all the artists do. I still don't have artist in my title, but I mean, I download like, I don't know, whatever your local college is. We probably printed the T-shirts that are in your school store.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so I download all the logos, all the new logos, and I make sure that all the colors are, the PMS colors are right, and I clean up the images and make them print ready, and then I put them up on our own servers for the
I gotcha.
Artists to use.
So, well, that's cool. I mean, at least you're doing something with art in your day job too. You know, even if you're not in the art department, it still requires an artist's eye, I imagine, to a certain degree.
Oh yeah, and it takes you have to know Illustrator quite well because I have to. There's so many. I can't believe some of these people have jobs as graphic designers. Some of the logos I get, I'm like, holy cow! What did they do? I was like, this is going to take me almost all day to fix this and make it, it printable.
Like printable, yeah. That is a thing. Vector graphics is a very specific thing, and some people really don't get it. But I'm curious. So we've got a rough timeline here. You were in the Air Force. You went to college for art. When did you start tabling at comic book conventions?
I want to say shortly after college,
Uh-huh.
or at least maybe during college or after college. I can't remember. It's been a long time. I'm trying to think because I think I would just go to Planet or whatever
Mm-hmm.
Planet was called before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And I think because I only went, that's the only one I knew. And then when I went to Planet, I started learning about all the other little cons. So I know that I think I've been attending Planet over 20 years. So
Wow.
so it had to be before, maybe. Let's see what year was that? Jennifer and I got married in 2002. So 2002, actually, I didn't have a table, but I went to Planet, and I forget, I met somebody there. I might have hung out with Ed and Ed LaValle and John Hook. I can't remember,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah. And then I think I started going after I met Josh Carter. Josh Carter was was one of my first professor for illustration. And so I think I met him, and I think I started going to Planet after meeting him and tabling then, I think.
Oh, okay.
So I might have been started a table around maybe 2005 or so. I'm not sure.
So you've been doing at least local conventions for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Because I think I met you in, it couldn't have been earlier than 2013, maybe 2014 even.
Was that at Free State or was it at?
No, it would have been at Planet Comic Con.
Okay.
Because I actually always use you as an example of because I am somebody who just complains about social media endlessly, and I just hate it. But there's positive things about it, and I always use the example that you and I met over Facebook initially, because you've always are very outgoing and you friend a lot of people. And we friended on Facebook, and I followed your art, and I saw that you were going to be at Planet Comic Con. I knew you were from Kansas City, and I was going to be there too. And so I went up to your table and was like, "Hey, we're friends on Facebook," and we just chatted. And
yeah, because I think we just became friends like in the last 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah. We had only just recently met over like on Facebook, and it was probably just through that network of people going to be at Planet Comic Con, and because I know a handful of, I've secretly wiggled myself into some of the networks of Kansas City people, but yeah, and so like we met that way, and we hung out at the con, and we talked, and then a few years later, you and we've completed 2 graphic novels now together. Yeah. And I always use that as an example, a positive example of meeting people and using social media, to network and keep in touch with people. Because I don't know if that would have happened had we not initially met over Facebook or just seen each other on Facebook.
I would have talked to you. You would have came up to my table anyway. Said hi. I would have talked to you.
That's probably true. You're a very outgoing person. You talk to everybody.
I do. I don't understand. It's weird. I don't know why people don't. And I guess I have different anxieties. I don't have anxieties talking to people. I have anxieties about people judging you and stuff like that. Or
yeah.
But actually, I got that same kind of compliment from one of my people I work with, Levi Combs. Combs. He said I was really surprised because usually artists are really reserved and they don't talk to people. And he said, and you showed up to the con and you're like, "Hey, what's up?" and shaking everyone's hand and talking to everybody. And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, I thought everyone did that. I was like, no, artists don't do that. I'm like, "Oh, well, I do. You better watch out."
Yeah. You definitely are. You're a very outgoing, friendly person, which is, I think, good. It's good. Of course, it's good. It's especially useful for conventions, though, because I do think
it's very good. I think Levi, he goes, "Keep that up. You're going to go places. You'll be fine." I'm like,
yeah, people like art, and people like talking to artists and talking about art. And I feel the same way myself when I'm at cons, just as a writer, where I'm just like, I always feel the pressure of like having to try to perform for people, and it doesn't feel natural, like I'm just talking to people. But yeah, you see a lot of artists that are just really shy behind the table, and they sit there and they put their art up, and they're not really willing. They don't really. It's not that they don't want to engage. It's just it's just difficult for them. It's different for everybody, but yeah, I definitely think that's one of the most striking things about you is that you're a very talkative person.
Yeah, can't get me shut up. Especially if it's something I know about or what I like.
Mm-hmm.
But usually, if if it's about something I don't know anything about, like if it's over my head and not my scope of stuff, I'll kind of just sit in the background and let everyone. I'm not gonna open my mouth and talk about something I don't know about and look like the fool.
Yeah, yeah. So talking about stuff that you know a lot about, what was when you started doing comic book conventions? Like, were you just there just to show off your art, sell art? Like, were you working on any comic stuff? What was the original? Like, how did you really get into it?
I think I did it because someone said, "Oh, you can make money doing commissions and just sitting there and drawing pictures of stuff." And I was like, "Oh." And I think I made some prints and I made some other stuff, but I didn't have any comics. And I think one year I did make I made an American Chop Suey comic, and it was just black and white. And I think I had a blue cover. I might have one somewhere. I'm not sure, but and I remember you think it's so awesome. You're like, oh my God, this is so cool. People are just going to buy this. It's going to be amazing. And people just walk past you and they just, yeah. If you're not drawing, if you don't have Deadpool at your table or Harley Quinn or whoever the flavor of the month is for the MCU movies or whatever, that people aren't going to come to your desk or your table or whatever to look at your stuff unless they're actually art collectors or they like stuff that's different.
Yeah.
Most people that go to Comic Cons, they don't, even though they want to find something different, they really don't.
It's difficult. Yeah. In the years that you've been doing cons, at least in the Kansas City area that you go to, have you noticed much of a change in like the comic book convention scene or like the crowds of people?
I remember when I first started, you might have a few people dressed in costumes, and it seems like now even just regular families, the mom and dads and two kids show up and they'll all be dressed up too, just to walk around and be part of the scene, have fun.
I do think that that's become a bigger, like obviously cosplay has always been a part of the comic convention experience, but it's definitely become a bigger part and a more, well, and a more like, I don't want to.
It's more like a Halloween now. Everyone gets to dress up.
That's what I was about to say. It is more like it's all the fun of Halloween, but not on Halloween. You get to do it somewhere else.
All the creepers and the razor blades and apples and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, without all the poison candy.
I guess
apples.
It's a comic book show, so there are creepers there too. So
there's no shortage of creepers at a comic book show. That's true.
It just seems like there's a lot of that, and I remember for a while there, everyone had comics and prints. When I first started, prints were like maybe somebody would have one or two prints on our table that they made, and you didn't have the big print walls and stuff when I first started either. And now you got those big print walls and
because I kind of remember that transition too. Because I went to a few comic conventions in the late 2000s. I think maybe 2007 was the first time I went to a convention. I'm having a hard time remembering that far back because I'm old now, but I didn't start tabling cons until 2012.
Oh really?
And that was 2012 was the first year that I was tabling at a convention. I had been doing Zero's Heroes as a webcomic for a few years before I actually got anything printed to take to a convention, but I had gone to a few cons, and I do remember, like, even in that short period of time, like maybe I was just like, I started right before the transition. Cause I remember the first cons I went to, and like the Artist Alley was mostly just guys with books. or, you know, like,
and a lot of them didn't even have those banners now or any banners.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, there was no banners or nothing. And it's like, by the time I started doing cons in 2012, let's say I didn't have banners for my first con. And then it's like by 2013 or 14, everything was banners and giant print walls. And it was it was like overnight kind of a thing. Like it just like happened just like that.
There's some people that I remember there was a guy that I considered a pro, and he said he wouldn't. He makes his living off of, he goes to shows and sold prints. He didn't even sell books anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And when you and I were working, we did books. It was a tough gig to sell a book.
It was very tough. Yeah.
And I mean, our books look good and stuff, but it was nothing. I don't know. I don't think.
It's very difficult to find.
It was a different book, and I think I just don't think it grabbed people like it should have. Like we thought it was amazing, right? Everything you make, you think's amazing,
right?
And everyone's gonna buy it, and they don't. And I tried, and I kind of take it to when I've told that at some people at the small publisher seminars I've been part of, and people are like, "Well, I'm gonna buy, make dice and all this." I'm like, "Yeah, you can make all this cool. Don't make all this merch thinking that your book is going to be the most amazing thing, and everyone's going to buy your pins and your merch and your 50 prints you made and all this." I said, because you're going to end up with all your books and all your prints and all this merch that you can't sell ever.
Yeah, I fell into that trap with the first book that I did, because it's like there's a mistake that a lot of people that are just getting into it make, where they look at the success of people that have been doing it for a long time. And I think there's also, I do think there's also just a lot of naive positive information out there, which is, there's a lot of people that found success, and they're like, it's really easy, just make your thing, people like it, and then you put it on t-shirts, and that's where you really make your money, is by selling t-shirts. And you're like, okay, so I'll make my thing, and then I'll print up a bunch of t-shirts and I'll make money. But you sort of like skip over the part where people like what that other person is doing, and that's the hardest part.
Or they know that, or they know of that person, or like their art, or
but it's a totally like nebulous part of the formula. It's like the classic South Park joke, the underpants gnomes. Like, step 1, steal underpants. Step 2, ? Step 3, profit. Like there is this thing of like, for some people, you just make a book and it goes viral, or it just gets popular through no work of their own. Like they're just
it gets popular, I think, because somebody that's a name will be like, oh my God, you got to check this out. And then they'll, just by them saying you have to check out this book by Aaron, all of a sudden all of their fans are checking out your book. So you just inherited all of their fans. And if you can't get that, you're kind of stuck in the water.
But it's all I'm getting at is that that's a very difficult thing to pull off, and it always looks so easy for people that have pulled it off, because you look at people that are successful and you're like, well, of course you're successful. What you're doing is very good. But it's very difficult because art is so subjective, so it's very difficult to tell like what's good, what's popular. And of course every successful artist is like, all you need to do, not just artists, every successful person, like every time I hear Dave Grohl say something like, if you're a good musician and if what you make is good, people will find you and you will find success. All you have to do is be yourself. And it just sounds so hollow, because it's like, I know so many people who are I personally know people who are really great at what they do, and they're not rock stars being played on the radio or playing at the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, it just sounds so shallow coming from that position of just be yourself and you'll find success. It's like, that's
no, I don't think, because there's too many people I've seen that don't be themselves at con that find success.
Well, then there's that flip side too, where it's like, you'd see people and you're like, okay, fine, they're successful, whatever. But like, they're not, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know. I don't want to dwell too much on that aspect of the
I was just going to add that I don't ever try to be somebody's friend in order to get ahead or anything like that. All the friendships I have, I usually they develop naturally and stuff. I'm not going to chase somebody around, kissing their butt, or following around like a puppy dog at the drink and draw or something. You know, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that in the end, integrity always wins out. I mean, I'm you and I have both seen people that were successful, like, on their way to the top, and now nothing because of
because of their behavior,
various things. Exactly. And we don't have to say anybody specifically.
I've been to a few parties where we try to talk to a few people and they just kind of wouldn't even talk to us.
Yeah.
So we ended up talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
Not to ourselves, but you and I just ended up sitting by ourselves, just chit-chatting and having a few beers because no one else would talk to us.
Yep. And now they're pariahs, and we may not be super popular, but at least nobody hates us.
At least you're not canceled.
At least we're not totally canceled. Exactly. Yeah. I'll take being ignored over being canceled,
Yeah.
But yeah. So tell me a little bit about comic books and your history with comics. What was the first comic book you ever read? Do you remember?
I don't. I know that
I see you got a lot of books on the shelf behind you.
I do have a lot of books behind me. I have they're probably all my books that I haven't sold. No, I got a lot of stuff. I got the collection of Bone. I got the collection of Amulet. And I got some other stuff. I got some reference. I got a Tank Girl and
very nice. Yeah.
And Daisy Cutter and some stuff by Tokyo Pop from the early 2000s.
That was the place to be in the early 2000s, was Tokyo Pop, before it all collapsed. But
it's just too bad because I love Halloween by Giffen and Benjamin Roman.
Yeah.
And this one here is more like children's books that I like the art and reference material. And it's all a bunch of stuff.
Did you read a lot of comics as a kid?
I did. I read my stepmother's dad. He had comics, and anytime we would go over there to their house, and just kind of kids are better seen not heard. It's kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I read almost all the comics he always had laying out about. And he would have like a stack of comics in this other room where the cat boxes
really
and stuff, And so I'd read those, and then and I don't think I really got into it until my friends in junior high turned me on to this guy named Wolverine. And I was like, whoa! So I started reading. Before that though.
Sorry. Just talking about Wolverine, I just have to show off my a shirt that I'm wearing right now.
I don't have that. I have a kickball tournament t-shirt on. So in 6th grade, I remember I watched the movie. I watched the movie Damnation Alley with George Papard and Michael Jan Vincent.
Okay.
And so, like my whole 6th grade career, I was drawing these. I don't even know what the vehicle they were driving was called, but that post-apocalyptic vehicle they would drive.
Yeah.
And I just drew those. I just drew post-apocalyptic vehicles that would survive anything all the time and all the different types of stuff. And then I think during the book fair, I ordered a Flash Gordon book through the book fair. And I discovered, I loved it. I loved it so much. I read it. It was black and white. I'm pretty sure that's Al Williamson was in the book. I don't have the book now, but I'm pretty sure it was Al Williamson, was Flash Gordon, right?
Yeah.
So I got home and I discovered that I could draw. I copied some of my favorite pictures, and I could draw like that. So I remember I got a Green Lantern comic and I started copying some of the stuff out there. I'm like, whoa! So once I discovered that, I really never wanted to copy comics though. I got into so I got in my junior high. I learned about the X-Men. So I collect the X-Men a lot, and it was either. The only thing I collected really was I would try new stuff, and I didn't really like it because it was something about Chris Claremont's writing. It was just amazing, and the characters, and it was just I tried to get into Alpha Flight and all this other stuff, and I never got anything DC.
Yeah.
I tried to get into Warlord because it looked cool. The covers looked cool, but the stories were just boring. But I read mostly adult stuff like Heavy Metal magazine, and I read Epic magazine, Savage Tales. So I collected anything with Conan on it.
Oh yeah.
And the two older guys, I mean, they turned me on to Boris Vallejo and Frank Frazetta. And
yeah.
I think I was more of a Boris guy than Frank. I'm like, I liked Boris because I just thought his stuff looked more realistic, and I think the skin tones and the lighting and all that was more flashy and stuff. So when you're younger, you kind of like that stuff. So I was all into that, and I collected some other stuff like Timothy Truman's Scout. So I didn't really read a lot of mainstream stuff except for the X-Men. Everything else was all. I take that back. I read G.I. Joe and Transformers too, but after a while, I kind of grew out of that. I liked the other crazier, like just the crazier stuff. And I remember when I saw Hard Boiled by Frank Miller, that blew my mind. That was amazing. I'm like, yes, blood and guts and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah.
I think a lot of it's difficult for people today to understand how huge Frank Miller was, like with the stuff that he was coming out with at the time.
Oh yeah.
Because he's sort of faded back. You know, his more recent stuff has been less interesting to me, and I think he's old, and there's that. It's like sometimes he seems like he wants to retire, and it's just like he's not really he's just not the present force that he was right. Like when in his prime, you know.
Oh, I was huge into Barry Windsor Smith.
Oh yeah, that was I think that was something that we both bonded over because I'm huge Barry Windsor Smith,
and also even back then Mobius, because I think I had, even though I didn't really care for it, I still bought the Silver Surfer, anything Mobius. And I bought anything with Wolverine, and I think I collected a lot of people. I didn't really care for Spectacular Spider-Man. I liked Web of Spider-Man. It was darker and a little more different, and it had the inking. I don't know how he did it, but what was his name? We met him. Remember, we met him in Memphis. Kyle Baker.
Yeah, Kyle Baker. Yeah,
Kyle Baker inked two of my favorite comics back then. He inked some of the Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man stuff.
Okay.
And he also inked some of the stuff by on the Transformers. And I couldn't figure out. At first, I sat there and I was like, I looked through the thing. I was like, who did this? And I was sitting there, and there were two different artists, but yet they still had the same look to them. And I was like, it has to be the inker then, because it can't be, if it's two different artists and the art looks the same, then it's the inker. Yeah. And it was Kyle Baker. And I'm like, my God, Kyle Baker is amazing. I love this guy. And so anything he came out with, I tried to get, because it was almost like Jay Lee before Jay Lee was Jay Lee, because it had that, it was very linear and solid blacks and stuff. And it was gorgeous. And I don't know. I collected a little bit of that stuff, but most of the stuff I collected was, I loved Dreadstar and Company by Jim Starlin.
Jim Starlin, yeah.
Yes, I thought that was good reading too. I really liked that stuff, and a lot of other stuff I just thought it was just like listening to music on the radio. I'm like, man, it's all right, I guess.
Yeah, I know it's difficult. It's not
Boris.
Yeah, exactly. You got to find that thing, that speaks to you, that really connects, and I mean that's what makes art great. That's interesting what you said about Kyle Baker and inking, though, because I do think that, I don't think it's even an opinion. I think it's pretty much undisputed fact that the art of inking is pretty much gone from the comic book industry.
Yeah.
And I think that was always such a, I don't want to call it underrated. That sounds like such a cliche, but it's such an important,
it's very underappreciated.
Underappreciated, yeah. But because
I think Andy Parks still inks comics.
Yeah, because even great artists, you know, because like the penciler is the name that everybody always remembers.
Right.
But like you could look at like Jack Kirby's work, and depending on which inker, it will make or break the look of the issue. You know,
I don't know. I think because I really didn't get into Jack Kirby until people started comparing my new stuff to his.
Yeah.
And now I can't get away from it. I just absolutely adore everything. I can see when I see stuff, I'm like, I know that's Jack Kirby. I can tell you right now that's Jack Kirby just by looking at it.
That's funny. That is funny too. That's a thing. I know you've mentioned that before. Like everybody, you in your own art, you're getting a lot of comparisons to Jack Kirby, and I have been saying that from the beginning since we started working together.
You sound like my wife because she's like, I've been telling you that you're that good. You don't have to. You never listen to me.
Yeah,
you're my comic wife.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like a work wife, work husband. That's a thing that people have, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been saying that since we did the Birdlander. Now the Birdlander was not a very Jack Kirby book, like stylistically, but but your art, I have been saying, has a very Jack Kirby style to it.
Everyone always says the energy, but I think once I cleaned up my stuff, and I mean, I still struggle with the fight between brush or doing clean work.
Yeah,
I still struggle with that because I like doing both, and I just haven't found.
Oh, and they can both look good in their own way.
Right. I think I'm still at the point where I'm learning because now, rather than always just try to use one tool. Mm-hmm. And now I have like my desk is just strewn with pens, and I'm like, all right, this makes this line, and this makes this line, and this makes this line, and it's helped clean up my stuff a lot. You know, I get a lot of more compliments for my stuff cleaned up. But there's always that one person when you do the really rough stuff with the brush, and it just, it's not all cleaned up and everything. It's just kind of, and there's still those few people that are like, oh yeah, and I'm like, yeah, you're on the mode I like, because like I love Ashley Wood.
Oh yeah, he's great.
I did not like him. I don't think I liked him when he first came out. Just like Bill Sienkiewicz back in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
When I was growing up, I'm like, what is this? This looks dumb. I don't like this. This isn't Boris. This isn't Boris. But now, I mean, the painters are my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Sienkiewicz and Ashley Wood and was it Dave? I think it's a British dude, Dave McKean. Is that who did?
Yeah, Dave McKean. He did the Batman Arkham Asylum.
Yeah,
book. Yeah.
So anyone that paints, I think Kerry Nord does a lot of washes and stuff in his work, and I love his stuff. And I have like this set of a couple first issues of the comic called Vikings.
Is that a newer book, or is that an older thing?
That's maybe mid 2000s or so.
Okay. Then I think I do know what you're talking about.
Huh?
I think I do know what you're talking about. Was it printed in like an oversized format?
I don't think so.
Okay, the ones then I don't know.
I didn't get I don't think I got the first run.
Oh, okay.
But
anyway,
I can't think of the dude, but it's a German dude, and he's and he did the paintings for him. I think he's doing Batman now. I can't remember. I can't remember the guy's name. I'm in a brain fart. I can't remember the name.
We're old.
Yeah, I am. Klein.
Okay.
I want to say Richard Klein, but I don't think it's Richard Klein. That's the actor, isn't it?
Are you thinking of Kevin Kline, the actor?
He's an actor, yeah.
He's an actor.
No, he does underwear. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That's Calvin. Oh, it's Calvin Klein. Yeah,
too many Kleins.
No. I'm pretty sure it's Klein, I think. I'm looking at my turnstile of comics, and I want to run over there and do that, but I'm like,
I'll fact check it after the podcast, and I'll edit it back in the correct name, so we don't look like a bunch.
You just get a voiceover for me?
Yeah.
Like, there you go.
Exactly.
Is that good?
Perfect. So, you've always had an interest in comics, but it's always been more just the art appreciation side of comics, you would say. Like you definitely
the higher end stuff.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
I loved Savage Sword of Conan was amazing. I love that.
That book is so great. I know.
Yeah, it was awesome. I even collected like King Conan and all that other stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I even did Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah.
I had that book too.
Yeah, that one. Have you followed any of the new Conan books that are coming out? I know Marvel's been doing a new series. It's it's okay. I haven't read a lot of it. I just picked up an issue at random that's written by Jim Zub, and it's one of the newer issues because the first arc or the first run was written by Jason Aaron, who is a really good writer, and but they're definitely, I think, a little bit more focused on the writers trying to capture the classic Howard voice, the original Conan writer. So it's good. The art is really solid. It's really good, but I don't know how much it's going to draw in people just from the art. I don't know. That's just that's not an official review. I've only read like one issue at random. I haven't really.
I probably won't. I mean, not unless the art was like spectacular or something. And
well, there's another series coming out. It's just called The Cimmerian, and it is I already forgotten which publisher put it out, but it's not a Marvel thing. It's somebody that's publishing the public domain Conan stories, the original Conan the Barbarian stories, but with new art, and it's really European looking.
Well, then I'm down.
So you might be interested in that because it looks really cool. Like they're advertising it as like the real, authentic, uncensored Conan, and it's not called Conan on the cover, because they don't want to have to.
That's what I liked about Conan, that Savage Sword of Conan. It was uncensored. There was like nudity, and he would get laid and all kinds of cool stuff. I mean, just like a barbarian would,
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, you might want to check out this new Cimmerian series. Cimmerian. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I haven't read any issues yet. I have read some of the short stories that they're based off of because I have read a lot of Conan. It's actually one of my favorite as far as like pulp fiction goes. I do think that they're really good. But I haven't bought any of the issues because they're printed in like the American size format, and the pages, they're really like, I can tell they need to be printed at like an oversized, it needs to be big to really appreciate the art. So I'm hoping they put out some nice oversized collected editions. I would really be interested.
Let me know if they do.
Yeah, I definitely will do.
Especially if it's like a really good European artist.
Yeah, exactly. So we haven't really talked a lot about like just your career, as it were, in art and comics. I know you've been tabling at cons for a long time. You've been doing just art, selling. Do you sell a lot of like commission work and original material, or you don't? I know you don't do a lot of prints, and I know for a fact, because this is something that we've both bonded over, I know you're not one of those print wall kind of guys. Like, you're not interested in doing fan art or licensed work. Like, you want to do your own stuff.
Everything I do, I usually sell. It's all original art.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a print wall, but it's all of retro sci-fi looking stuff. The robot pulp or metal robot.
Yeah. Well, I was going to bring that up because I do think that that's one of the more striking things that I've seen at a convention. This is a weird compliment, so take it for what it's worth. But like, if you're at a con and you see the robot pulp print wall, it's really good looking. It looks really cool, and it feels like it's something that you should have already heard about.
Oh,
if you know what I mean. Like, it feels like something, like I can imagine people discovering it for the first time and be like, wow, this is amazing. Why have I not heard about this? And what I'm getting at is because it's really good and it's really cool, but I think a lot of people are used to seeing things at cons that are from something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so to see just a bunch of original artwork on display, and also the fact that your robot pulp covers are in the style of traditional book covers, so it does look like it straight up just looks like somebody unearthed a bunch of old covers and have licensed them out, and now they're trying to sell the prints of these like 70-year-old covers. But
right,
no, it's not.
That's what it's supposed to look
That's what
like.
it's supposed to look like, and it's all original artwork by you. Yeah.
And it was all because of one year I didn't have a comic ready for Planet Comic Con.
Mm-hmm.
And so our friend Alex Madej, he was like, you've been drawing those robots for lunch art. Why don't you just take those and put them into a book
Mm-hmm.
and just have an art book of robots then and sell that at the con? I was like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. So I just have to make a couple more pictures. And then I posted online, and another friend of mine used to live in Kansas City. I think he's living in Seattle or Portland, Oregon, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he took out the Amazing Stories thing and photoshopped Amazing Stories on top of it. And once I saw that, I was like, because I didn't realize I was just drawing robots. I didn't intentionally make them, but it looked old the way I drew stuff. And so I just ran with it, and I made a whole bunch of those. And you and I both have stuff on Amazon where you wrote some stories for the covers I've done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of just went with that, and it turned out that actually made more money for me than comics did. even with it made more money for me than comics. The Chop Suey comic and Birdlander and my Chop Suey prints.
I do think that this is the interesting conundrum of like prints versus comic books, because so much work goes into making a comic book. It's a story. You got to write it. You got to draw like 1 million images on 20 pages. And then you got to print it all up, mass production. You got to print several copies of it. And that's like so much work for something that is
sold for $5.
Sold for $5. Whereas a print, it's certainly a lot cheaper to do. It's one image. You can easily mass produce it on one sheet of paper and sell it for $20 or more. But I do think that there's an important distinction there about just the value of like, it sounds really dismissive. Like, you're paying $20 for one sheet of paper versus $5 for 20 sheets of paper with 1 million images and a story, et cetera, et cetera. But there is, like a comic book is something that you might read once and then you're done with it. Whereas like a print, if it's really, really good, you're going to put it on your wall and you're going to see it for every day for the rest of your life. And so there is a lot of value to be had in something like that. Like if it really is that good to be hung up on somebody's wall. So that's all of that is to say is like, I understand the price difference in the two. And I don't think that people should feel bad for charging what they do for prints. I know all of the artists don't feel bad for charging what they do for prints because everybody's got to make a living. But I do think that's something that kind of gets lost a lot of times when I see people talking about like, it's always a debate that occasionally happens with artists and writers and people making comics. And you always express frustration of like so much work goes into a comic, et cetera, et cetera. But I think a lot of people just, you lose this.
Remember the idea I had where I was just going to make like was it 4 or 5 page comic and just not make a book. I was just going to make each page into a print. And
just make the prints. Yeah. I still think that's a good idea. I think we haven't cracked the code. I think there's a way to do that. Maybe if you could you'd have to do like some Grant Morrison level like style of storytelling where it's like a 4-page story where each page is a story unto itself and you put them together and it's a greater story, but you don't need to buy all 4 of them. You could just buy one. And
you would want to make so they could buy one and call it good.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. But you could get all 4 and it would be its own thing. I don't know. There is an idea there, and I'm really almost tempted to cut this out of the podcast because I don't want somebody else to steal it.
Do it. I would, because it's still. I know I was just kidding when I came up with it, but I kidded, but I said it out loud, kidding, and then I was like, "Wait a minute, that actually sounds like a great idea."
Right? I know. Well, maybe. Let me.
We had our books, and it got to the point where I was getting frustrating that we weren't selling any books. And I mean, we even were syndicated cartoonists. We had we have a syndicated comic.
Yeah.
and we were being published, and we still cannot. I still couldn't. Just felt like we could not get ahead.
Yeah.
And I was frustrated, and I was just thinking, and so I did some soul searching, and that's what I thought about. I was like, well, you really didn't read these kind of comics when you were growing up. You actually read the more adult things, and blood and guts and sex, and all, and the crazier thing, like post-apocalyptic stuff, and so I was like, well, that's probably the problem there. But now I'm in games.
I wanted to talk about that, about like what you've been working on lately, because we did American Chop Suey in 2017. I think it ended in 2018, so it's been a few years since then.
Yeah. Actually, I think it's 2018 it started.
Oh, you're right. It was 18 and 19.
I only know that because I was doing something in I was filling out something about a publication, and I went back to our first panel, the first page, and it was January something 2018. I'm like, oh wow.
Oh, okay.
Does that make any sense? That doesn't make any sense, does it?
No, actually, I actually think it was 2017, because 17 was the year that we did Heroes Con.
Oh man.
We don't have to talk about that, but
no.
But we would have had the comic going at that year that we were there. So
that's right.
Anyway, so yeah.
So
games? Since then, yeah, you've been working on game stuff. Like how's that gone? Like, first of all, what does that
amazing
mean?
A zine?
Yeah. What does that mean? Explain that to people.
It's like you had to ask me that. I think zines are popular in the 80s, right?
This is why you're the artist and not the promotional salesman. It
was just stuff. I would say zines are probably were the first mini comics.
Sure.
It was just stuff you made. You would make your cool pictures or whatever your subject matter was. You wanted to do stuff, and you would make like a magazine or just the stuff that you liked. And you go to a copier and get it. Get a 8.5 by 11, and for two pages on the front, 2 pages in the back, and then take it and staple them by hand and pass them out to your friends, and has all kind of cool art and like just different stuff that you liked. Well, now it seems to be it's in games they do it, but it's for like it's more like a module now.
Okay.
For D&D or any other type of tabletop game, it's more like a module, and you can use whatever rules from whatever game you want, the game mechanics, and you just take that or whatever. You can either add on to the D&D, make your own little world or whatever new characters or new monsters, or just even a new adventure, or you can make a completely your own new game using some of the same mechanics and make a whole new game out of this stuff and have it sold as a zine.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
It's amazing. And I usually don't collect stuff. And lately I've been collecting, even if I don't play the game, I've been collecting it because I like the graphic design and I like the art inside. And so I started collecting zines, and I'm like, this looks awesome. I like this picture. I'm going to buy it now.
That was the same thing that got you into comics. Yeah. Like in the art.
Yeah. And I like the fact that when I'm working with zines, and it's also, I noticed when I'm trying to make stock art as well and sell stock art on the internet. But as I was trying to put stuff together, I noticed that I'm like, most of my stuff isn't high fantasy. I noticed most of it's all sci-fi stuff. And I still like drawing. I like drawing high fantasy, but I think my wheelhouse is just cobbled together post-apocalyptic stuff and monsters and mutants and robots and all that stuff. I remember when I was in college. College they would always have you stand up and say your name and tell the class something about yourself. And my buddy Dave said he used to laugh every time I would do this, because I would stand up in the first day of class and go, "I'm Ed Bickford, and I want to make an obscene amount of money to draw monsters and drink coffee all day." And I just sit down.
Very nice.
And it's getting to the point where I'm not making the obscene amount of money, but I mean, I really love games. I look back on my experience with comics, and I feel I mean, I can't really say I wasted 13 years of my life on comics because I learned a lot of stuff that transfers over to games.
Right.
But
It's
I do
all
feel
it's all
like
about
I
learning
was
from the
barking up the wrong
experience.
tree for the 13 years with trying to, because I don't know why it never hit me that you could still make I don't know. I'm trying to make so I can do this full time one day,
And you can
but it never
still
hit me. The only way
you
I
can still
knew
make
was
art.
comics.
You can still make art
Right. You can
and
still make
and
art and
be
make a living.
creative, but it doesn't
Right.
have to be in comics.
Right. And I never thought of that the whole 13 years. I mean, I still wanted to dabble in RPGs, but comics was the first thing. And I think it's because I had that dream from 6th grade, just white knuckling that dream, holding on to that dream so hard. Kind of like when you give blood, you're like, you can release now. You're like, I can't.
Yeah.
So then when I finally released and let comics go, it just everything in games opened up for me. And I mean, I work with Levi Coombs a lot, and then through him, I get through his books. Other people saw my art, but like, oh, I want to work with him too. And I would have people come up to me, and it's all because I went to, I forget what, I think it was 2000, it might have been 2017 at Air Capital.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, and I don't think I had a good show, but I love Air Capital, so just sitting there is fun anyway. And this one guy comes up in a suit and tie and starts talking to me. And I'm like, okay. And he gives me his card, and so he goes, I'm legit. You can check on the internet. Look, this is really, I'm not a weirdo. I'm not just a legit business. I'm like, okay. And I guess I was the only person out of all the artists that gave him the time of day. And that guy was Casey Christopherson from Frog God Games. He's the art director for Frog God Games.
Oh, cool.
And then so like 4 months later, Levi contacts me out of the blue. I was like, hey man, Casey sent me your way and said I should check out your art, and I would really love to work with you on some stuff. You guys, would you be willing to do some art for my book? I'm like, yeah. And then so now I get that a lot. The people get the books, and it seems like at least once a week I get a new person like, oh, I saw your art in this thing. Would you do art for my book too? I'm like, sure. So,
oh, right on.
One of these days they're all going to hit me at once. So I'm started using a planner, and I'm trying to do a business plan, and I'm trying to get all organized because I'm just like, I just know one of these days everything's gonna hit at once.
Yeah.
If I don't have everything organized, I'm gonna drop the ball somewhere and lose a client or something. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that's as they say, that's the kind of problem you want to have, right?
Oh yeah. Like I work with Jim Wampler, and he does a Scientific Barbarian. He just had a new book come out, and I had the cover for that. And I had some excuse me, I did some interior work for that too, and for that book as well. And I have a whole bunch of other stuff I'm working on that's coming out. And I also do like a fake. The funny part is I let go of comics, and now I got people who keep on. Now, someone once told me that comics is like the mafia. They're never going to let you leave. They won't let you leave.
Yeah.
And so I keep on having people like, hey, would you draw a cover for my comic? And I'm like, okay. And I just actually had someone yesterday ask me, he was like, hey, how much would it cost for you to draw 8 pages of comic book work for me? And I was like, yeah. So
yeah.
I'm like, well, I don't know,
Well, that's where the real
Depends
money
what it
is doing cover work.
Yeah, cover work's luscious. I love that.
Yeah.
I can get all crazy and just, I'm done. Color it. It's like doing a print.
Yeah, exactly. None of that grunt work, interiors.
I don't have to draw that guy. I don't have to draw that guy's all the staples or all the studs on his jacket
a million times.
Pages.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool, man. We've been going for about an hour here.
Okay.
Believe it or not. So before we wrap up, I guess we'll use this opportunity to plug. You were just talking about that time you were at Air Capital Comic Con. You're going to be at Air Capital again this year, right?
Yep, aren't you?
I am. I haven't said anything about it online, so I guess I will. I guess this is my announcement. Although it's not much of a secret because Air Capital's basically been the only con that I've gone to for the past like
I love
three years. Yeah, it's a very nice convention. It's not like
I missed going to it. Nash was really upset we didn't get to go to it last year because of COVID. But I'll be at Game Hole I get an artist table at Game Hole and Game Hole Con in Madison, Wisconsin, October, I want to say 21st through the 24th. I'm not sure. Can't remember. So I'll be there at that con, then also be at.
Where'd you say that one was at? Where did you say that was at?
Madison, Wisconsin.
Madison, Wisconsin. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Traveling for that one, huh?
Yeah. And then, in June, I went to North Texas Comic-Con, which is in Irving, Texas.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. I enjoyed that. I met a lot of people. I mean, I left. It was the best con I ever had. All I did was bring like 3 or 4 portfolios full of original art because I didn't have a table. I was supposed to go down there and play games.
Oh.
And I got down there and I first night, I make friends pretty fast. And so this one guy, Jason Braun, he's like, "Hey, Brown," he goes, "Hey man," he's like, "I have a table that I didn't know I had, so if you want, I'll split my table with you." And I'm like, "Okay." So I ended up sitting at his table all the whole con, and him and I got along great.
Nice.
We became good friends. And then it got to the point where he's like, "Well, I got a luncheon and I got these other panels and stuff I got to." He's like, "And I don't have anything. All I have is," I think he had like a couple of things in his backpack. And he's like, "You can have the whole table." Like, I was like, "Be careful what you tell me, because I mean, I know how to take out a whole table." So I did that, and all I sold was original art from zines and books.
Oh, nice.
And it was all game stuff, and I made the most money I've ever made at any Comic-Con since I started doing this.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
And it was ridiculous, and I guess it was probably the size of Free State.
Oh yeah, okay.
Just the tables.
Yeah,
not like where the tables where the merchants and the artists were set up, right? They had. So it was probably that big, and but it was pretty bigger because you had the other tables where all the games going on.
Right.
But I would just say with the merchant, what do you call them? The merchant tables. It was probably the size of Free State, maybe.
Okay.
And then I guess Game Hole is supposed to be really big because they actually have a artist alley as opposed to distributor.
Okay. Oh, cool, man. Well, that's awesome.
So I'm excited about that. I still got to get my hotel.
Yeah.
Hollis has been wanting to go, but Jennifer's like, "Yeah, Wisconsin, it's like 8 hours drive."
Yeah.
She's like, "Maybe if it was air cap, I'd let him go." Like, when Nash doesn't want Hollis to go because it's like his last hurrah before he joins the Army next summer.
Oh, Nash is joining the Army?
Yeah, he's going to join the Army.
Oh, cool.
He tried to go to the Air Force, but every time he went to the Air Force recruiter, they were never there.
Oh, wow.
The Army guys were always there hanging out, so he became friends with the Army guys, and so I guess he's going to join the Army next summer. So he's going to be going basic training sometime next summer. So
wow,
Hollis
that's exciting.
Taking over the air cap thing.
So Hollis will be the new junior helper behind the table.
Oh yeah,
he's going to be promoted up. Well, cool, man. So where can people find your work online? I know you're active on Facebook.
I am active on Facebook. I'm trying to be more active. I'm trying to learn Twitter. Be more active on Twitter.
Yeah, good luck. I don't have that one figured out.
I'm on my art's on ArtStation. If you go to Ed Bickford, I think it's edbickford.com/ArtStation. I don't know how it is. I always cut and paste the link.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's always just click.
Yeah, copy, but it's Ed Bickford on there, and I have I'm on Drive Through RPG. I have stock art there, and I also am on TeePublic as Metal Robot, and I have T-shirts.
Cool. And you also still, at least for now, we have robotpulp.com is up.
Oh yes,
and people can buy Robot Pulp prints directly from you.
They can. You can see them all there, and I also have some at MythMart as well. I have 4 brand new prints for 2021 there as well.
Oh, right on. Well, cool, man.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, all right. I think we're going to call the podcast there.
All right.
Thank you thank you for doing this. It was good to catch up and just chat with you. I knew we would have no trouble filling an hour, even though I came into this completely unprepared with nothing to talk about, but I knew we would.
Oh yeah,
we would not struggle. Hey everybody, Aaron Walter here, just reminding you that if you like this podcast, please subscribe to the channel. Also, head over to secondthoughtcomics.com to stay up to date on the various comics that I write. For a limited time, I'm giving away a free PDF of my latest graphic novel, The Amoral Stingray. All you have to do is sign up to the Second Thought Comics newsletter. Link is in the description. Thanks for reading.